All right. Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of The Light of Insight. I'm your host, Nina. And today I am super excited to introduce a very special guest. We have been doing some really fun coaching workshops and events together, and we actually have one in person in Tokyo next week, which I am super excited about. But I would love to introduce Yuka, who is a human design analyst and life purpose coach. Hello, Yuka.
Hi, Nina. Thank you so much for having me. It's my first
Oh,
podcast. I'm
I'm
nervous, but yeah, I'm so excited.
oh, I'm so excited to have you on the Light of Insight. And the first question I want to ask you is what's lighting you up right now?
Oh my gosh, I have quite a lot actually. I'm surprised. But the biggest thing I think is being in Tokyo, and I'm so looking forward to this workshop that we're going to be doing next week. And it feels like, yeah, it's come like full circle because this is my first in-person coaching event that I'm doing. Um, and it's like in my motherland. So it's just like I feel like it's a full circle and I'm just so excited. Yeah.
I'm so excited too, and I'm so excited that you kind of did like a spontaneous move and decided to buy the tickets and made it all work. It's going to be such a great event.
Mm,
But I think it's going to really help the listeners if we go into your coaching background because it has a lot of different elements that I think really go beautifully together. And it's a lot of
mm,
different coaching elements that I like to use in my sessions as well. And so you combine different themes like cultural identity and life purpose and human design and all these super cool frameworks. I'm just wondering what has led you to becoming a coach that focuses specifically on these types of themes.
yeah. Um, I think so the thing is it comes from my own personal experience because I'm a Japanese born to Japanese parents. I was born in Japan, but most of my childhood I lived abroad. I was brought up abroad in predominantly in the UK. But a bit of Hong Kong, and I went to school in Canada for a year as well. So a lot of mixtures. And so that's where like the cultural identity, like who am I, really comes from. Um, but at the same time, I've always been a person that's wondering like what is my purpose. Some people who are just born so talented in like say music or like they're dancing or arts, or I don't know, they're just like a mathematical genius and they just like kind of like their path almost is so obvious for them. But for me, I've been like jack of all trades, kind of. I know I can do well in whatever I want to do. Um, and yeah, so I've always wondered, like, what am I here to do, really? What should I pursue? And so that's led me into helping others after going through myself some like struggles of finding my ideal career and stuff like that. I wanted to use that my own journey, my own experience of knowing what it's like to go to work every day feeling drained and not looking forward to it, and help others who are finding similar struggles in life and helping them find something that they really are passionate about, something that is uniquely for them. Because I believe, as cliche as it might sound, like everybody has come and is born for a very unique purpose. So I just wanted to help them find that. And human design is one of the tools that can help you also in identifying um, what those gifts might be.
So beautiful. Thank you for sharing. Where were you before coaching entered your life?
Yeah, wow. Okay, so I studied engineering at university, and I was a manufacturing engineer for an internationally renowned company for a couple of years. And just going into that work, like it was for me to see if I really like it as a job. I kind of already knew that that's not what I wanted to do, but I also didn't know what else if not that, you know? So I was like, okay, I have to give it a go. I did get a degree. I have to give it a go at least to show myself that that really isn't what I want to do. So I was in the corporate world as a manufacturing engineer. And yeah, it was the longest 2 years, I feel. And then from then on, I've been doing all sorts of things, just trying to find what I really enjoy, giving it a go with digital marketing and like other facilitating events and spiritual work, stuff like that. And finally, I think a lot of people has found this, but COVID, the pandemic gave us the opportunity to kind of like slow down, really look into what, you know, we really enjoy doing in life and what we really want to put our time and effort into. And that was a moment that I um, told myself that I would study a little more, and like experiment. And yeah, I came to coaching. And right off the bat, I was like, where has this tool been in my life? Like I had no idea what it was about. But my partner suggested, I think you really like it. Why don't you give it a go? And yeah, I just fell in love with it from day one. So
Oh,
yeah.
I love that. I love that so much. I'm wondering if you would have any advice for someone in a similar position as you were when you were doing your engineering job and you were just feeling unfulfilled and like it was the longest days of your life and no really purpose in that job. Because I have a lot of people in my life and I just know tons of people around the world are just living unfulfilled lives, specifically with what they're doing. But what would be maybe that first step you would recommend to someone that just is super stuck and lost in their careers, to cultivating a more meaningful and purposeful life?
Yeah, really good question. Um, so what something that I wish I knew when I was in that stage, now that I know and it's easy for me to say as a coach and going through my own journey, is to um really kind of be honest with yourself. I think it's really easy to try to kind of put it aside and try to, what's the word I'm looking for? Like distract yourself from the discomfort that you're feeling every single day when you're going to work or at work. Um, and just have the courage to like face it and try to put a name or just dig a little bit deeper, like why do I feel, what is it specifically that I feel so uncomfortable about this situation, this environment? Um, and uh, sometimes it is really like the work you do that is not aligned to or yeah, who you are or what talents you have. But sometimes it's just the environment that you are surrounded in, that isn't allowing you to fulfill your highest potential in that role. Um, so there's a lot of elements, but I think one of the biggest things would be to be bold, be courageous to face that uncomfortable um, or this discomfort you're feeling and ask yourself honestly and without judgment. I think that's one of the biggest things that we're even scared of our own selves, like what we think of ourselves, because we are our hardest critique, I think. So giving yourself that space to be non-judgmental and to just be honest with what you really don't like about that job, it will give you some pointers of what to look for in your next job if that's what you want to like change your course. Um, and from there starts all this self-awareness. And self-awareness is key. I think everybody talks about it, especially the coaches, when you become self-aware, it gives you so many hints of what you want to work on, and what you want to excel in, and so many clues of how you can really live your highest potential. Um, but we're not really taught those tools in life at school. So we're kind of just like left with, oh, well, what to do? You got to just do your best in that environment.
Right. Yeah. Do you have a favorite self-awareness tool that you use for yourself or when you're with your clients? Like, what is something that you can do to start cultivating self-awareness right now?
Mm. I love personally journaling, and I won't say it's for everybody.
Mm.
Um, so for my clients, I really just honor what they want to do as, in terms of tools. I give them a bunch of tools that I know, like as an option, and they can choose and like even experiment which tools might be the best fit for them. But personally, I like to journal, and in journaling, I find a lot of, especially when I write by hand, because in this world of technology, a lot of people can type, and there's nothing wrong with that. But personally, I feel like when I write, it's a little slower than when I type. So actually, my brain has a bit more time to process what I'm writing or how I'm feeling, or just give that space and time to really connect with yourself. And as you write, all the thoughts, all these feelings can come up, and you just write them just free flow. And in that, there's so much wisdom that's come out, and it's from within you. So it's like really therapeutic as well as empowering, I think, because you're writing it, and you're writing it from how you feel, what you think, or the thoughts, and it's from you. But then when you read it back, and that's one of the big points that I stress when I share with whoever I share my journaling practice with, is like looking back and reading back is a really important step that a lot of people miss out. And yeah, quite honestly, I was also like, no, I don't want to read it. It's a bit embarrassing. Like, what am I going to gain out of it? But there's so much when you read back.
So much. It's so funny that you say this, Yuka, because I just reread a older journal that I kept in college. So this was
Mm,
like 4 or 5 years ago. And I was rereading the part in my journal when I was going through a bad breakup. And oh my gosh, I reread it yesterday and I realized just how much I was gaslighting myself. I was
mm,
totally lying to myself, saying, like, oh, it can't end with this guy. Like, we're gonna find a way to make it work. And everyone is saying to, like, create boundaries and distance, but I know in my heart, like, it was just so like, oh my God, Nina, you
yeah,
don't understand. So I guess it's such a great way to understand like different stages of your life as well, like how far you've
yeah,
come.
yes,
Because I would not, I love my 21, 22-year-old self. But reading that, I was like, wow, I have come a long way because I
mm,
would not have put up with that
yeah,
for so long. And I haven't reread this journal. Maybe I have like once or twice, but it really just hit and sunk now with how much growth I've been building since then. So I really think that's a super important point that you made is building self-awareness, journaling. Yes, you hear that a lot, but I love this point of rereading your past entries and really understanding, like, oh, where have you, maybe what are some patterns that you keep
yeah,
repeating, or what what did your younger self like really just need in that moment? Because when I was
mm,
rereading that journal, I just realized like I just really wanted to have be loved like all of us do and like have that attention and just not end that relationship with that guy because I just
yeah,
felt so loved and attached. So I didn't want to judge myself then. But oh my God, it was such like a healing reread for me last night. I was like, oh my gosh, I need to do this more. And it's really therapeutic. maybe some people might think like I do not want to see what I wrote a few years ago, but it was really, really nice. So good point. I like that a lot.
Yeah. I like when people say journaling, it's like, but what do I write? Sometimes it's like you don't have anything to write. So I have like a free journal, what do I call it? Prompts. Um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, and then I write like what should you look out for when you reread it also, you know? Because it's like
Mm-hmm.
rereading, yeah, it could like you could be aware of how you feel in that moment when you reread, like how you were saying, like, wow, Nina, you should like, why are you gaslighting yourself? But you know, or maybe it's like, oh, I still feel this way, or
Mm.
like just takes you back into that space as well. Another thing is like what are the words that you often use to describe like uncomfortable situations, or like how are you wording your experiences? And there's like a whole bunch of like techniques within just even rereading your entries. So that's like a whole nother thing that I love to share with people because it does um, let you in another level of journaling, I feel. But yeah.
Oh, I love this so much. And also, we can link those free journaling prompts in the show
Oh
notes
yeah.
as well.
Yeah,
And we'll
yeah.
also link Yuka's website as well.
Yeah.
The another question I really wanted to ask you, which is more of an identity related question, is I can definitely relate with part of your story having this multicultural background and perhaps not ever feeling for my story specifically, I never really had a place that I felt like I truly belonged. Like I truly
Mm.
just like, wow, this is where I belong and this is where I feel the most like safe and seen and all of that. Growing up in America and now living in Japan, I still have these feelings, but it was never really kind of a conclusion I came in my life recently. It's never really about the external feeling of belonging. It's more about like building that within and belonging to yourself and loving yourself. So I'd love to hear about more about how your identity challenges have kind of led to more of an understanding of your healing journey. Because I think my healing really started when I accepted that, wow, I really have this deep wounding around not belonging,
Mm.
like a lot of us do. So I'm wondering if that also kind of propelled you as well into this healing personal development space. Um, because you did share, of course, with your career how you just felt so unfulfilled, but I'm wondering more identity wise if there was also something there.
Yeah. So as I mentioned earlier, growing up away from my parents' culture, um, but fully looking Japanese, I was really fortunate to never have been really discriminated for my race. Even though I grew up in the UK, where it was predominantly white British culture or people or environment. But I do remember feeling sometimes like uncomfortable or like a little embarrassed. For example, like I would go to, um, what are they called? Like school events or school outings, and everybody, like, because we ate school lunch. So lunch was always given to us. So everybody ate the same things basically. But for school outings, you could bring your own packed lunch. So my mom would make me like onigiri, the rice balls. And I remember the first time I bought it, and for me, it's normal, we eat onigiri all the time, but never at school and never around like predominantly white British kids that maybe have never seen like a dish like that. So I remember, and like, the seaweed wrapping, and it smells a bit different, it looks very different, and everybody's like, what's that? Like pointing at, my lunchbox, and I'm like, and also my lunchbox is different because like, the Japanese like lunchboxes. And everybody just had like I don't know, plastic wrapped like sandwiches or something like that with a bag of like crisps or chips, and I had like these like bunny ear cut like apples and really healthy. And I just remember like being so embarrassed. Um, and I didn't even have words to explain what they were, and everybody's like, what is that? Like, what does that taste like? It smells a bit, looks like. So I distinctly remember like feeling, oh, I'm not one of them, you know? Um, or maybe I should be careful a little bit more, of what I bring to school or like that. Um, and another challenge I had was like my language skills. Like I was fluently in both Japanese and English, but in English I would hear my friends say like no normal phrases, but I don't know those phrases because we're not taught necessarily in school, but they picked it up from their parents or grandparents and what have you. And at home I speak completely Japanese with my parents. So I'm not exposed. I didn't have that extra exposure to the language. But then at the same time in Japanese, like yeah, I could speak and understand, but I couldn't read or write, because it's so complicated, especially when you grow up not surrounded in like Japanese writings and stuff like that. So I never felt Japanese enough in just because I couldn't speak or read or write fluently. And then at the same time, I can say, well, I'm completely British because I don't look it. I eat different things, and also like even though I'm fluent in English, I didn't feel like 100% like my peers. So I always felt that's how I felt like not enough in either for
Mm-hmm.
me, and that also like kind of that was like my limiting belief like I'm never going to be enough in either one or the other. So I think even though I can see now looking back that everything happened for a reason and I'm happy the way it happened, it did kind of determine what decisions I made, basically. For example, when I went back to Japan at age 12 and I was put in Japanese school for Shotoku and Chugakse, um, yeah, my Japanese wasn't at all near the standard where everybody else's was. And so I was like, oh, when you come to that age and then you're going to high school in Japan, it's like whether you go into maths or sciences or you go into more like the literature, arts, like category, and you want to prepare yourself for your upcoming exams to get into university and all that. So I was already kind of had these questions like, which path am I going to take? It wasn't we didn't have an option to do both and be well at both. It was more like you should focus on one or the other. So that because I thought I would never be fluent in either of the languages, I was like, okay, I have to choose maths, kind of. And even though I wasn't really mathematically like able in one sense, especially against Japanese standard, I just put so much effort into my mathematics in junior high school. And I was like, math, this is like a universal language. Like, it doesn't matter if it's in English or Japanese. Like, I can do maths because it won't change. Like, the formulas are the same. The numbers are the same. And that's how I went into actually engineering. But then later on, I realized that that's not actually what I'm really good at, necessarily. Yes, I can become good at it if I really try my best and get a really good tutor and be dedicated to, you know, um, yeah, preparing myself for the exams. I could pass exams and get the best grade. I mean, in fact, I graduated university with the best grade in my engineering class. Like, but then when I went to work, it wasn't what it wasn't really for me because I didn't enjoy it, and that's why I was good at it. It was just because I chose to be good at it and I became good at it. So yeah, it's so like that, like the identity culture, it stems from my cultural identity of who I thought I was and who I thought I should be in order to succeed. Um, but then at the end, I hated it, you know? And then after that, I realized, like, yeah, because I wasn't really being myself completely and really nurturing my natural gifts and talents and tendencies that I have. So it was all kind of like a backward, like engineering almost of figuring out what I actually am good at and what I want to pursue. Um, but the other thing that really helped me um, come into terms with this, like not enoughness or my struggles of cultural identity, is coming across Vedic wisdom, which is the ancient wisdom from India. And one of the key philosophy is that we are not these bodies. So whatever labels, whatever external identifications that you have with the body, for example, how I look as an Asian, what language I speak, they don't define me because I'm not the body, I'm actually the spirit soul. And understanding that, and when I came across it, I was like, oh, so I don't need to be one or the other. And in fact, being able to identify myself with one or the other won't change anything within me or how I feel about myself. Um, and so, yeah, when I understood that, like a huge weight lifted off my shoulders, and I felt like, oh, I just can be me, and like what you said, like find that peace within myself and not rely on the labels and yeah, all these external things that is directly connected to my body.
It's interesting too how those wounds, though, and the feelings of not enoughness, it ultimately did lead you on a path of digging deeper and digging deeper into these identity questions, and then coming to this Vedic wisdom and having the realizations like, oh, I'm so much more than my body, and I'm so much more than these national, cultural, religious, whatever identities that I am placed into. It must have been just such a beautiful moment, and I really deeply resonate as well. I think identity is so tricky because we need it to make sense of the world, and we need it to, close the gap, and we just need it as humans. But there's just so much more passing that identity layer that I think a lot of us aren't fully aware of
Yeah.
because of how much the world just grips onto identity. And I think what's also important is to understand that identity is constantly changing, and it's so fluid as well. Like my relationship to my Japanese identity has changed completely. And my relationship to my American identity, and also my relationship to my bicultural identity, like it's always changing. And I think there needs to be more of this sense of flexibility when we talk about identity, because I think that's what's the most difficult is, of course, like wanting to belong to this identity, but then when it changes or it for some reason just like leaves your life, if it's a career change, for example, so you're not an engineer anymore, you're not that career identity anymore, you kind of lose a sense of like maybe purpose, or you lose a sense of self because you're not practicing the law of impermanence,
Mm.
which is a universal law, right? So there's just so much there with identity that I think really beautifully intertwines with Vedic wisdom and like what you shared about the we are more worse than our bodies. What other, I did want to talk with you more about Vedic wisdom
Yeah.
and human design, but what else has really spoken to you or resonated with you from the Vedics and that wisdom tradition in India?
Oh, there's so much. You've just opened like a
A big
like
door.
yeah, big door. Um, I can't choose one, but something just pops in my mind right now, just because we're speaking about like career as well, is that one of the teachings is also like how do I word this? That you it doesn't matter how perfectly you can be someone else or fulfill someone else's role, duty. You'll never, that's not the goal of life. And that's actually imperfection, even though you can do it perfectly. Um, what is better and best actually is for you to imperfectly fulfill your role and duty. I'm not that, okay, wait, let me rephrase that. What is best is actually for you to do your duty and fulfill your roles, even though it might be imperfect.
Mhm, mhm.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So, like, I think exactly like how I chose engineering. Yes, I could do it really well, maybe best out of class, to graduate, with the best grades, whatever, and get this very honorable position in an international company. Everybody was so proud of me. But like deep inside, I was so empty. So externally, it looks like you're doing and you're being the best and fulfilling, but because it's not really aligned for me, that wasn't really meant for me. It didn't fulfill me. So, but in turn, like when I'm actually doing something aligned for me, that's supposed to be for what I'm here for, even though it's not imperfect. So even if though I might not be making millions and being famous and whatever success metrics you want to put into how successful you are, or how well you are, like even if I'm doing it imperfectly, I gain so much joy out of it. And it's so true, because it's like this is something that I can only do, and from that you feel fulfilled and satisfied and feel like encouraged, even in the days that are so, because everybody goes through ups and downs, whether you're doing the perfectly aligned career role duty that you're meant to be doing. Everybody has ups and downs. That's the nature of life here, right? So in those moments of down, when you go down that challenges, when you're doing something that is meant for you, you can still find that energy and encouragement and strength to go through it. So that's one of my favorite like reminders for myself, and something that I love to share with my clients as well. That even though you might not be doing something imperfectly, and you could be doing something else perfectly, it doesn't mean that if you're able to do something perfectly, that is going to be fulfilling for you.
Right.
Yeah.
Right. Perfectly. And then also, I think it's like really that kind of societal expectation of what is successful or perfect or
Yeah.
impressive, X, Y, and Z. Yeah, I really love that. And I think a key point that you said too was the joy, the happiness, that like pure just fulfillment that you feel in your heart when doing this duty, this
Hmm.
purpose. And I love thinking of Dharma, soul purpose. It's like the sweet spot between your highest level of joy and your highest level of service,
Hmm.
because that's actually what feels so good about living in alignment with purpose. Is like it's not really about you, which makes it so gratifying.
Yeah.
It's not about you, but it actually serves a group or a, I don't know, a community or school. Like it goes beyond yourself. And that's
Yeah.
when I think you reach the sweet spot, because it's like it also fulfills, it fills your cup as well. So with joy, then how would you advise people to start following their joy? Like, what's a first kind of step then that someone can do if they're just lacking that in their life and they're like, oh, I don't really have anything that I'm passionate about or that makes me joyful? Like, how do I even, what should I do about that?
Yeah, yeah, it's a great question. So, I like we mentioned earlier, self-awareness is number one, but how to get there, like experimenting, journaling. There's so many tools out there, but really understanding like without all the external influences and societal expectations, or maybe even from your parents, siblings, like peer groups, what you think they expect of you, or what you know them to expect of you. Because some people say like you should be doing this or you shouldn't be doing that, you know. But without all of that, like where what do you like doing, even like where are you drawn to, what kind of subjects, what kind of environments, what kind of things can you spend so much time doing that you don't even realize time is passing,
Mm.
you know. And like it's hard to come to that stage because we're growing up hearing and seeing and watching people and being told like this is what success means, this is what it means to have a great life, and all that like expectations, they like cloud your own understanding of what you want. um so self-awareness is actually trying to remove that external influences, you know. um And yeah, there's that's one of the tools I use is human design in order to do that, because it's a tool that helps you, or it's a tool that like combines ancient and modern sciences in order to um, give you an energetic blueprint of the moment you were born, and it can tell you so much more of, yeah, you can tell you so many things from your physical alignment as well as your energetic alignment, and how you perceive the world, how you like to interact with the world, and your gifts and talents, natural tendencies, and all of that. So that's why I like to use human design with my clients, to kind of show them, because it's really difficult to like, okay, just become self-aware. Like how do you do that, right?
Right.
So if you give them like a reference point of maybe this is what energetically is coming up for you, and see if that really aligns with you, start experimenting, just trying to think outside the box of what you're used to already. um so self-understanding. And then the next piece is like we have intuitions and like gut feelings. Some people call it gut feelings. Um, so learning to lead with that intuition or gut feeling, or from, I like to call it from your heart, where they might not be no like there might not be much logic behind why you feel that way, why you feel pulled to that particular profession or place, you know. Versus leading from your head, which is what we're actually trained to do, um, especially at school. Um, you know, because the mind has so many thoughts every day, and you can also change, and you can talk your mind into things and out of things, and like yes, we have logic, and that is like a energy that we can use, a strength we can use, but at the same time, like we can also tap into our heart space, and there's a lot of wisdom that comes from the heart space too. In the Vedic wisdom, there is the super soul, and actually it resides within the heart. So tapping into your, yeah, heart space is not just like a random thing, but it's actually also you able to connect with that super soul. And the heart is your soul as well as the super soul. So
I
I
love
like,
you so much. I've never heard this before. The
yeah,
super soul,
yeah,
how can one start tapping into their heart center, their super soul? And is you raised a good point too, like how we lead usually with our head, the logical brain, but how can we start leading more with the heart? What can be a way to even tap into that when we've been trained for so long not to?
yeah, yeah. Um, Meditation, somatic work also is great. Um, just trying to like be aware. Okay, first is everything starts from awareness, no? Like, what decisions are you making from the brain? What decisions are you making from your heart? And I feel like another thing is like we emphasize and actually put making decisions from your brain in a superior position. But I think there is a place and time for that to be true, and other times and places when that doesn't need to be true either, and we can actually use our heart space to lead us. So tapping into heart spaces, you can visualize just connecting and breathing into that space in itself and allowing yourself to feel whatever emotions that come up. Just trying to feel that center because we're so disconnected from our bodies. So it's like, what is it? Where is it even? You know? So putting your hand onto that place and just breathing into that place and is like a start to connect. Is a beginning to connect to that space. And then Nina, like from that space you can start to move body, and whenever your brain is like, oh, but I look like a fool, or I shouldn't be doing this, or these like talks come in, you just like become aware, like that's my logical brain speaking. But right now, let my heart speak and guide me. So, like, practicing and giving your time and space, like, purposefully, like, or consciously, to have a moment in your day to allow yourself to lead from your heart. And you can start small. And then as you get used to it, it becomes a bit more natural, and you become to have more courage to let that heart space lead you and make bigger decisions than your brain. And Sarah Blakely, do you know Sarah Blakely?
Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh,
the
yeah.
Spanx founder.
Love her.
So she was telling how that she was at one meeting, like CEO meetings, and there was like just one female, her, with like 4 or 5 other CEOs at the table, and they were having business meeting and all this, and they were sharing like how their business have been growing and been doing the past year and things like this. And at the beginning of her work, everybody was like, "Oh yeah, but she's a woman," and kind of looking down on her. And then they had a reunion like years later. And same people. She was again the only female, but she had done much better in her business than the rest. And she said after that meeting, every one of them came up to her individually asking for what she did that everybody else didn't do. And guess what she said? She said, I let my intuition guide me.
Of course.
And, sometimes it's like, I feel like I need to, I don't know, not do this big deal, sign these big deals, or even go to accept this job position or whatever. Like, there is no logic behind it because you're going to get a higher salary and this is what we're working after, like, for so long. And, you know, there's so many, like, logically, it doesn't make sense for you to reject that. But, like, from the heart, there's something that says, no, don't accept it right now. And she had the guts to just follow that intuition. And those are what helped her to grow so quickly, so massively, that the others weren't doing. So there's a lot of, I mean, business decisions, like leading from the heart, like that's a big step for your first step. You don't have to take such big leaps. You can start small in your day-to-day life. Like, I think we also become so practical, like, because the logic makes sense, it's more practical. I'm a very practical person. So I had to learn to just like go with the flow. And going with the flow is also like that feminine energy, that from the heart energy, and allowing that energy to lead you sometimes is really, really powerful because it's like yin and yang. The logical is more masculine, more like, but there's a time and place for everything. And also, when the feminine energy can flourish, then also it supports the masculine energy when it needs to be there. So there's like a check and balance. Yeah.
Oh, I love it. I love everything related to like the balance of the energies and uh it helps so much in life too. Like I actually really didn't even understand feminine and masculine energies until maybe a couple of years ago.
Mm,
And it has helped me in life so, so much. And just like you said, in different cultures, in what like China, it's the yin and yang, or in India, it's Shakti Shiva, and there's also the doshas, and there's just so many ways to kind of understand what energy you might be predominantly in and exercising more in life and which ones to like bring in more of to create the balance. Like it's such a great tool as well to incorporate in life, but definitely intuition, more of the feminine energy, it's something that society kind of blocks away from. It's not seen as the logical, the practical, which society actually puts on a pedestal, which is such a huge problem in this world. I truly believe like we are just so far away from the flow, the intuition, the heart, but so just hyper masculine structure, logical, all this. There needs to be that, what you said, like the balance of both energetic powers. How, so it sounds like you were more in your masculine energy, especially as an engineer. That
mm.
sounds very masculine.
Yeah, totally.
How did you start to allow your feminine energy flourish? And also, a side note here, feminine and masculine energy, it does has nothing to do with gender. It
Mm.
all humans embody both energies. We're just talking about specifically energy right now, not gender. So just put that away.
Yeah, it's an important point because yeah, it's a really good how did I start embracing feminine? Because yeah, I think the connotation when you hear like masculine and feminine energy, I I had the idea that feminine energies are like weak, like fluffy, like not reliable, temperamental. That's the kind of like image I had of it. So growing up, and I feel like, especially in Japan or having Japanese parents, it's very structured, very like punctual, and very like we get to control, like, that very masculine actually. Maybe it might be like because it's city life, like big city life.
Right.
You have to be in one sense to be able to control the population or to have things in orderly manner. You have to have a certain degree of masculinity to hold it, and you know yeah, so for everybody's safety actually. But like I said, that balance, when it knocks over, like, that balancing point, then it becomes kind of unhealthy, or yeah, you just get disconnected with femininity because that's not honored or that's not prioritized either. So I had a very big disconnect to my feminine energy growing up, I think, thinking that I can control a lot of things that I can't really. I mean, for example, like time, like you know. Like I have to be punctual, and it's good. Obviously, it's good to be punctual, but when it's just a date with myself, or like I told myself that I will do this at this time, like I don't have to be that punctual, you know. And like life comes, and like my plans might go out of the window, but I would hold myself so, I would be so harsh on myself to not be able to have that control. Um, but when I started to embrace that feminine energy and like I can actually flow with what's happening and also trust in a higher power and, you know, that things will go like and work out like without me having to control it so much, that allowed me really to let go of that masculine energy and actually embrace that feminine energy. And now I think I have quite a good balance now. I wouldn't say it's perfect. I'm still learning a lot, but like compared to my, I don't know, high school years, university years, like my goodness, I've changed so much. Just because, yeah, I'm allowing that feminine energy to guide me. And it's led me to so many beautiful opportunities and like wow moments. Like even the way we connected is because I allowed like that fluidity to, you know, we for the listeners, we connected through a common friend, Christy. Um, but like to meet her, I just embraced like going with the flow. Like it was never my plan to meet her or get to know her, like, you know. So it comes in small ways, but it has a big impact, I think, um, on my life. Yeah.
I love that. I love how you use the word wave as a visual. It really is just riding the wave and giving yourself that reassurance and love and compassion when you feel a little bit scared on the wave,
Mm,
because it can feel really uncomfortable on it,
yeah.
especially if you haven't, you know, been used to that kind of that energy in your life. But it's just like you said, it leads to such beautiful encounters, connections, experiences, and I just love having that type of feeling. Like I can relate with you. I feel like also my Japanese side is very masculine energy, and I've
Mm,
never really given it too much thought until you said, yeah, like the big city and just culturally it feels very
yeah.
like everything's ちゃんとしてる. Like everything is just so like, oh, so
Proper.
nice and tidy and proper, and it's just so like masculine.
Yeah.
So I feel like feminine energy for me, because I feel pretty more naturally in my feminine,
Mm,
because I've danced my whole life. Um I, I pretty am tekito actually, like, which is in Japanese, it's kind of like, anything is fine, kind of go with the flow, whatever. But it like upsets my Japanese family a lot, though.
mm,
It's like, Nina, no, you need to like be more chanto shiru. And so I always thought like I always need to have more of a plan and more of that discipline. And again, we need both, just like you said, it's the time and place. But I just feel so much more naturally in my feminine, and it just feels so good. But in order to allow that feminine energy to thrive and flow, I needed to be supported by the masculine. So
mm,
my whole practice has actually been, how do I how do I get more into that masculine energy without it overpowering my feminine? Because sometimes when I'm more in the masculine, I'm like, huh, I know I'm getting a lot done, and it feels like people around me are more accepting towards this energy type. But is that just because it makes them more comfortable, my family more comfortable? I don't know. This is still definitely an area that I'm exploring more in my life, but I think it's it's very helpful. So, and looking at it through a cultural lens
mm.
too. Like I think we can do a whole workshop or course on
Ooh,
this, like how Japanese culture influences the feminine and masculine energies. Because, yeah, like my mom is so in her masculine, like
Mm.
hyper masculine, like work, 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 work. She was just like such a hustler worker her whole life. And I never really saw that joy and flow from her as a little
Mm.
girl. And that definitely does play a big influence on a child and what energy you feel more natural in. But that will be coming soon then, everyone. Some kind of fun workshop maybe about the
Yeah.
feminine and masculine energies. I think that would be so interesting, especially with our cultural backgrounds and tying that into Japan. Yeah.
It's amazing how much influence that we get from culture,
Hmm.
and our upbringing. Um, and yeah, it just fascinates me. Every time I think about this, some a new thing that comes up, from different lens. Like right now, we're looking at through the feminine energy and masculine energy point of view. Like, how does that culture, like, which one is it more leaning towards, or which one does it embrace more, or put on a pedestal more? Which one is more praised or looked up to, kind of. And yeah, it's just fascinating, like, and kind of understanding, oh, maybe that's why I feel like that when I'm trying to embrace the other energy, where maybe that's like the block that I'm having, because culturally it's not accepted to embrace my femininity that much, you know? Um,
Ooh,
so
so juicy. Yes, that's so, so true. The
yeah.
cultural blocks. Yuka, you just coined a new coaching term. Cultural blocks. I love it. I love it so, so
Yeah.
much. Oh, this has been such a joy having this conversation with you. I absolutely adore you. I want to ask now where listeners can find you so they can connect with you. We'll also link that in the show notes as well, but I would just love for you to share that with
Yeah.
everyone.
So I'm most active on Instagram, yuka.purpose, or you can also find my information on my website, yukapurpose.com. And yeah, I'm looking forward to connecting with more people. Um, with cultural identities, it's just so fascinating. I've lived in, I don't know how many countries now, but so many. There's 8 countries, I think, and counting. And I just love getting to know the cultures, because you can read about it, hear about it, watch movies about it, but it's a different thing when you actually live it day in and day out.
Mhm.
And I just love getting to know, oh my gosh, I didn't know. Like last year I was in Dubai, and that was my first time connecting to the Middle Eastern culture, like the Arabic culture. And there's so many things that I still don't understand or like new to. But we are so diverse, and it's like amazing. So I just love meeting people from all over the world with different backgrounds and learning from them. And but at the same time, when we do coaching, a lot of the things are common.
Yes.
That feeling of not enoughness. Doesn't matter
Mhm.
which culture you come from or what kind of background, like whether you were brought up in just one culture, you still feel not enoughness, So we're so diverse, but at the same time, we're so similar. Um, and it's just fascinating. So yeah, looking forward to connecting with many of you.
I love that. Such a beautiful message to end on. And thank you so much for your time today. And thank you, Light of Insight community, for giving the episode a listen. I'll link all of those great resources, Yuka's contact information in the show notes. And again, thank you so much, Yuka,
Thank
from my
you.
heart. You're amazing. I'm so happy you're in Tokyo right now, too.
We gotta set a date to meet up again.
Yes.
Yeah, I
Yay.
loved it.
Thank you. Thank
Thank
you.
you.
And everyone have a beautiful rest of your day, and we'll see you next time.